In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln Road Trip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 41 of the Kiln Road Trip, and today we're at Kiln Provo talking with Michelle McCullough. Michelle started her first business when she was 19 and currently runs 3 companies, including consulting other businesses all around the world. She's the author of 4 best-selling books, including Make It Happen Blueprint, The Happyist, and The Time Blueprint for Entrepreneurs. In addition to being the CEO of Dreamboard Media, a digital marketing agency, Michelle is a seasoned speaker and former corporate trainer who teaches high performance and leadership strategies that boost employee engagement and retention. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoy. Thank you for joining us on the Swell Pod for the Kiln Road Trip. You are one of the 100 interviews that we're going to be doing. We're super excited to talk with you. If you can, just for our listeners, can you introduce yourself and what you do and why you're passionate about it?
Oh, for sure. My name is Michelle McCullough, and I help organizations create experiences so that there's deeper employee engagement and less turnover. We do a lot of work on building resilience. I'm super passionate about happiness and high performance and helping individuals at every level of every organization feel like they are valued and want to stay, and also that they are overall happy in handling the various roles that they play.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible. How did you find yourself in this position where that's the niche that you're in? Yeah.
You know, I say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I started my first business when I was 19, and my background is in marketing and advertising. So kind of a far stone's throw away from where I am now. I also still own a digital marketing agency and love the work that I do. We work mostly with experts. But what I figured out over time is that I'm not really a marketing coach. I'm a happiness coach. And once people figured out how to create better marketing plans, they were so much happier in their businesses. They were happier and created better priority, and no one ever can find balance, but greater priorities at home and at work. And they just felt confident moving forward. And I've always been passionate about happiness as a high performance practice. And so I still own my agency. I still do marketing speaking, but I do a lot of marketing. I do a lot of training on high performance and happiness for organizations and individuals as well, because I feel like that's the greatest mission in the world. If we can build more resilient people, we can solve a lot of the world's problems.
What kind of companies are you working with? Like all sizes, or is there a specific size company that primarily will bring you in?
That's a good question. It depends. And it depends on how people find me. 97% of my business is from repeat customers or referrals.
Okay.
So I do a lot of work in tech spaces because my background before I owned my own businesses, I worked in tech companies. But then I also do a lot of work for direct sales companies because there's a lot in Utah, but I've been passed around and referred to others all across the country. And I love that audience as well because they like both the mindset and the marketing, and we can have some pretty jazzed conversations about how to grow businesses. But really, I've done banks and everything in between, so it's kind of fun to see where I get referred and where I'm going to speak next.
Yeah, that's incredible. Could you give us an example? So you were mentioning, so you speak, you put on experiences, so like events and things of that nature. Could you give us an example of like an experience that you've put together in the past?
Yeah, we were working with an organization that was really dealing with a lot of turnover in their field, in their sales reps. And they also were not interested in promoting the business and were just super comfortable. And so we looked at their 2 upcoming events, one for their leaders and one for their entire field. And instead of just creating speaking opportunities, we figured out a way to create some experiences within the event. So instead of people just coming and getting talked to, we had better experiences and ideas where they could come and create some role play opportunities. We taught a lot through gamification.
Mm-hmm.
And we created ways to get people interested and up out of their seats rather than just bored and sitting. And then it created more memories, it created more interest, and it created a new fire and excitement. And so they left both of those both of those events pretty jazzed, and it was very helpful for the organization.
How do you, I'm also interested to know a bit more about your past.
Yeah.
And how you found it. Let's go there first, and then I'd love to dive a bit back into the experience stuff. But yeah, tell me about your I don't know, your family, your siblings, your parents, your grandparents, I don't know, but where did you come from?
Sure. I was raised by a scrappy single mom. My dad was in the picture, but he traveled a lot, and she was an eternal optimist. She wore happiness symbols around her neck, and we had motivational quotes all over our house. And whether those were for her or for us, I'm not sure. But I feel really grateful that I was raised by someone who is an eternal optimist and gave us opportunities to process and deal with challenges. She was really good at helping us bounce back when things were difficult. And she put us in opportunities and situations where we could stand up for ourselves and build some strength. She never called the school principal. She never called the teacher. She never would get involved if we wanted to change our classes. And so I'm really grateful for the independence that she built. And so that gave me confidence and courage. I joined the debate team and did a lot of speaking. And that's actually how I paid for college. I was on a college debate team. And then I went to school and education for marketing because you couldn't take professional public speaker courses to get a bachelor's degree. There are communications that you can, classes you can take and a degree you can get. But I let that pay the bills for lots of years. But I also was the youngest to ever take the What Matters Most training from Franklin Covey. So I just lived in this world where high performance kind of met everything else. And people used to see me grow my business and say, Michelle, how do you do it? And so I was able to share some of my success principles and habits and some of my nerdery a little bit because I begged my mother for a Franklin Day Planner when I was 12 years old and have been pretty passionate about time management and productivity ever since then. So really my worlds collide now decades later. And at the same time, I feel like I'm just getting started.
What was it that made you want that planner?
Probably partly peer pressure. I had a lot of friends who had Franklin Day Planners. I mean, this is back in the 90s when they were paper, right?
90s, yeah.
So I had a small paper day planner, but honestly, I begged for it for Christmas. She probably rolled her eyes and laughed a little. But that year, other people were asking for like Gerbo jeans and Sony Walkmans with cassettes in them. And I'm not that old, by the way. But that holiday break, I spent so much time prioritizing to-do lists and writing a mission statement and getting very organized. And that was just kind of my beginning into productivity and how to get things done. And it layered really well with my upbringing.
That's awesome.
That's like my youngest brother, Greg.
Was he writing mission statements?
He was definitely doing mission statements when he was like 10 and 11 years old. And I'm like, come on. No, but it's good stuff. What was one of the earliest mission statements you wrote back then?
Oh, I remember my first one having the word anchor in it. I don't remember what it was, but it was like being anchored in productivity and getting things done or something like that, something silly because I didn't really understand what life was like. But it's evolved over time and different missions evolve. And I think that's good for any human and any organization.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned debate. We were going to have a debate with you. Now we have to scrap that.
We're going to have a debate.
Well, she's too good at debating.
Oh, yeah, we can't debate. No. No way.
Let's not bother. Let's just agree with everything.
It could be fun.
Yeah, true. It actually could be. What should we debate about?
Well, let's debate about how do you then measure? I mean, I am interested to know the transition that you went from marketing to happiness, you know, and then to, I suppose, experiences more than the marketing side, because you're really talking about experiences internally, I believe, right?
For internal organizations.
For culture, which is exactly where I'm at the moment with what I'm doing and what we did within our organization that we used to work for, a very big company. But how do you measure that, and what does the client want from an outcome from the experiences?
That's a really good question.
This is a great question. And I'm going to tell a quick story. I'm not going to try to bore you, but the first book that I wrote in 2017 was called The Make It Happen Blueprint. And I was able to go and speak to different organizations, large and small, as part of the launch of that book, which I still use. And that's still one of the keynotes that I give. But I had, but there's a chapter in that book called The Plastic Bag Principle. And that principle itself is all about how you handle your challenges and the baggage that you have in your life and how you can move forward successfully. And so I did a presentation for an organization all about productivity, which was the bulk of the Make It Happen blueprint. And it was like time management and goal setting and all of those things that we consider part of a productive life. And then I came back 3 years later and I did a whole presentation on the plastic bag principle and created a series and a framework about how to be happier in your life. And about 6 weeks after I did that, the owner of the company called me and he said, Michelle, you'll never believe what happened. My people are more productive now after your presentation on happiness and resilience than they were 3 years ago from your productivity and time management. And so what we have found in our research with organizations is that giving people a space to understand how their brains work and to figure out how to build those resilience reserves actually makes them more productive than time management training and setting goals does. Now, those are all great things, but if you don't have a basis of emotional stability, it's really hard to move forward on anything else. So when we're dealing with organizations and trying to create what success would look like, because some people, my biggest challenge is people will say, happiness and resilience is a soft skill. I need hard skills when I come into my when you come into my organization. And while I get that, I truly believe that happiness is the first success principle. So if you can't create happiness within the individuals that you're working with, it's really tricky to get them to be successful on other fronts. So we work with organizations to measure engagement. We measure productivity from the outset of what that looks like, but we're really creating a place where can we measure if turnover is decreasing? Can we measure if more people are referring friends to apply for jobs in the organization if there's open headcount available? We look at the longevity of employees. And so sometimes it's not just a single speaking engagement that we'll do. And so we usually work with organizations on a year-long or 2-year contract to really help them understand the principles. Because if you just hear something once, it might affect you. But if it starts to become your language, your vernacular, and something that the organization is doing from the top down, you get a lot better results that way.
What's the for the year-long or 2-year-long contract? Like, how is that structured? Is it as like a consultancy with a few things built into it, but with the option for additions over time for like different experiences or things like that? Or
Sure. We always start with an assessment because every organization is different. So we'll go in and either do an employee survey or a focus group with certain people to try to get a handle on what people are dealing with most. From there, we recommend both live engagements and experiences. And in some cases, we have people say, hey, we want to do coaching for a specific number of our employees. That can either be in group or one-on-one. And then we do monthly webinars or weekly video series, depending on how deep the organization wants to go. And then we create environments, almost like book clubs in the organization where they're actually having conversations about how to implement it and how individuals are implementing it to give other people ideas. So I like to say that, hey, there's 12 different options and ways we can work, but then we go in and we figure out which ways are best and we propose those to organizations. And some people want them all and some people can afford 3, but at least it gets us deeper into conversations rather than just a single speaker engagement.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Is there ever any, I was just going to say, is there ever anything beyond, let's say, whether it's 12 or whatever the menu options are, is there ever anything that's completely customized outside of the menu that's this full proposal, like this is going to be an insanely cool experience that's going to do wonders for your organization? Or is there anything like that that's just...
We came to 12 because over the years, we've just created new things and now we have additional offerings. So yes, we get creative and sometimes we'll have an organization say, hey, have you ever done this? And we'll tweak it. Yeah. So we're always coming up with new ideas. And I think in the world that we live in with a variety of challenges in workforces with virtual employees and in-person employees. We're having to get more and more creative. And so it's not just a single one-off that works. And so we really work with organizations to create the packages that work. And sometimes that means we start from scratch and brainstorm something brand new.
Okay.
Yeah, because I could see where you're going there. Because sometimes it can feel like a cookie cutter.
No,
not what you're doing,
Right.
but you know.
Well, I'm also wondering, like, for a year-long to 2-year-long contract, it's hard to imagine the creative that it might take to do a fully customized 2-year contract. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
But but that's a good point too.
Yeah. So, what insights have you learned? Things that didn't work, you know, in early days. Not now, in how you implement some of these things or how you measure them
I think the trickiest thing now is in a world after the last few years that we've had, people's resilience reserves are completely depleted. So most of us going into 2020 would have a resilience reserve. There are some people who didn't. But now we're finding that because so many people have expended their energy, brain focus on the challenges of the world and even the consequences of moving past that after the last few years, building those resilience reserves is trickier now. So you used to get by with dealing with specific tangible takeaways. And now you have to do a lot more things to help people feel seen and understood. And so it actually takes a little bit longer to get to success than it used to because you're rebuilding those reserves into a place where people are even feeling healthy enough to do that. So you do a lot of, while pampering is not the word that I want to say, you do a lot of groundwork in soft ways to build that, but also that can be fun. And there can be easy, simple things, but it goes way beyond the food that you have in the kitchen and the fun corporate events that you do. It's about helping people understand their brains and why their brains function the way that they do, and creating experiences about that because they can't listen anymore. They have to figure out how to experience it. But then through that, they can figure out also how to choose into different energies. So we're creating environments in team groups with team activities. We're creating environments with leadership teams so that they can do their own breakthroughs, because we are in a world where we've got leaders with low resilience trying to help employees with low resilience. And it's like, who is leading who? And so sometimes it's a matter of starting from the bottom up and sometimes it's top down, but we're getting really specific about creating the right experiences to help build those reserves so that people come out confident and then they're ready for the training that they need.
And do you work out of Kiln?
I do.
You do?
50-50. So I do have another office space with an employee that works and some other things there. But this is where I primarily see clients and do all my filming and other things in front of a contract.
Yeah, that's interesting. Could you talk about maybe why you choose to do that? Just as it relates to Kiln.
Kiln is amazing.
Yeah, okay.
And Kiln is luxury / expensive. And in the environment where I am, I have employees that are only working part-time in the office. And so we have found some economical options that work, but also proximity, because just until recently, they didn't have a location in Provo. And so now we're playing with, do we combine those and just do one local? Are we moving all of our people to a virtual? So we just make different decisions. And unfortunately, every single year throws another curveball. So we just have to be resilient ourselves in office space. But I've been a Kiln member for, I think this is my 5th year.
Wow.
And I have always loved what it provides in the way that it helps me as part of my brand. When a client comes into Kiln, they're like, holy cow, this is amazing. And so then they think I'm amazing, and I'm always a fan of that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
there,
for
there
sure.
really needs to be a 5-year badge of honor.
Don't you think?
That's a really good idea.
And where is it?
I paid
Arian?
money
Come
the
on.
middle of 2020 when no one was coming, and I want the badge for that.
Arian,
You should.
Did you hear that? Michelle has been a member for 5 years. She even paid when she didn't need to.
Yep, there you go.
That's amazing.
So just going, I know we need to wrap up because time has already flown by, and this has been super fascinating. We'd love to learn even more outside this call. And then, did we get you to name your company? the company name.
My company is called Dreamboard Media, and that is the overarching arm for what I do. And then most people know me for Michelle McCullough.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So, okay, yeah, a lot more people working from home, but a lot of companies dragging and forcing people back to work.
Yeah.
How have you had? And
I like how you explain that, dragging and forcing people.
Isn't that true?
They have. And,
I feel like it is.
There's a different need now, but I mean, have you had clients that have wanted you to reimagine experiences and work with them on bringing them back to the office? If so, what have those custom kind of projects look like?
So I will be honest in saying this is an area that we struggle with and that corporations struggle with. But what I will tell you is that the research shows that after 6 months of being back in the office, they're actually happier because as much as people say they love being at home, they will tell you they're more productive at the office because it's more collaborative, not because they're focused. Because people are like, well, people can be productive at home. They can, but it's not just because they're focused, but because they can work with other people around them. And the team environment actually makes people feel more fulfilled. Many of us will joke and say that we're introverts and we're actually happier alone, but studies are showing that actually we do better when we can connect with others. But there is that really wide 6-month gap that you kind of have to push through. And it's really hard to tell somebody, you're going to love it in 6 months, but just come back. So we're trying to work with organizations to create incentives and to do it in steps instead of just going straight to 5 days a week, start with 2, and then in 6 months, go to 3, and then in 6 months, go to 4, and then decide what's best for your organization. And a lot of companies are sitting happily at 4 days a week because at least it increases the collaboration, but then people still have flexibility.
Yeah.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we want to thank the partners and sponsors who made the Kiln Road Trip possible. The Kiln Road Trip is brought to you by Kiln. Kiln is a boutique co-working and flex office community with 13 locations in 6 states across the West, dedicated to providing innovative workspaces that empower your team to thrive. Whether you're a solo visionary or an enterprise-level team of up to 100, Kiln transcends being merely a place to work. It's a hub for learning and connecting with like-minded professionals that will make you and your team love where you work.
And if you haven't stepped foot inside a kiln yet, you really need to. On this road trip, we visited every single location, and trust us when we say once you see these beautifully designed spaces, meet the talented team, and connect with fellow members, you won't want to work anywhere else.
Locations include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And they're growing too, with multiple locations set to open in 2024.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the Kiln locations nearest you by booking a tour at Kiln.com and answer Swell in the question, how did you hear about us? Once you complete the tour, you'll be entered into a competition where you could win a 1-year membership, their club membership at Kiln.
Yep, you heard that. That's Kiln.com, book a tour, and be sure to mention Swell in the question, how did you hear about us?
The Kiln Road Trip is also brought to you by Moterra Camper Vans, a luxury camper van rental company for iconic road trips. Their top-of-the-line vans are available at 7 locations located near America's best outdoor adventure destinations. They have consistently earned the highest customer ratings in the industry, making Moterra camper vans your gateway to adventure without sacrificing on comfort or service.
That's true, and initially we wanted to take this journey in a 1960s VW bus, but thankfully we found Moterra instead. With 3 van options, we took the Pop Top Classic, which sleeps 4 and is best for those who want to maximize floor space and storage. This was critical for us because it needed to sleep the entire crew, we needed space to edit, and we were traveling with large amounts of equipment, luggage, and other goodies that we picked up along the way.
And this van took us through all 3,580 miles of the trip. Super comfortable and sweet to drive.
And actually, Moterra offers fully planned itineraries if you'd rather leave the planning to someone else.
Visit gomoterra.com/swell. That's gomoterra.com/swell.
This episode is also brought to you by Taurus. Taurus is leading the charge in home energy storage. Taurus makes it easy to achieve energy independence and a greener tomorrow. The Taurus station provides everything you need to generate clean power, efficiently store electricity, and easily manage your energy use.
And installing a Taurus station offers plenty of benefits, including save money on your electricity bill,
also ensure energy security with backup power during outages,
reduce carbon emissions with renewables.
You can also automate EV charging and HVAC systems with 100% renewables.
And enjoy unrivaled system monitoring and support.
If you like the sound of those benefits, get a quote to build your Taurus station in less than 30 seconds. Super easy at taurus.co. That's TORUS.co. Now, let's get back to the episode.
I see that. I if we had longer time for debate, it would be around this subject. Not with necessarily with debate. You, but we need better reimagined physical spaces for people to come back to. Not to pamper them, but just like it's a different world.
Yep.
Yeah. It was probably not very imaginative and fit for purpose before. Like reimagine your spaces.
100%.
And not just physical spaces. It could be digital, online spaces and tools and platforms, but also programs and events and experiences. Like do something completely different than it wasn't there before, and that will maybe accelerate that 6-month journey you just described, and that transition could probably accelerate that too, because you're giving them something new to look forward to and experience. But yeah.
All right. So to the end of the podcast, we ask one last question.
You've asked 99% of these.
But you usually start the podcast.
I butcher the question.
Oh, let's switch it up. You go.
No, I said I butchered the question. That's why you do it.
I believe in you.
Well, we asked this question of everyone to talk about what does it take to create a movement, if you will, an idea that never existed before. What advice do you have from your experience for those out there trying to do that?
I think there are two main pieces that come with any movement, whether it's within an organization or anything that's global as well. The first is the individual has to feel like they belong. So belonging is such an important part of creating a movement, so that people feel like they fit in. There aren't qualifications to fit in. It's not about what you wear or how you talk, but whatever the belonging fits there. But the second part of a movement is an excitement into action and getting people to feel like they're part of something bigger. And because they're part of something bigger and they belong, they want to do something. Yeah. A movement only works if people are ignited into action. And so you need those two things to make it successful.
That, I think, was the first customer-centric answer for that question I think we've ever received. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the customer,
it was very focused on the people who are participating in the movement.
Yeah.
I loved that. That was really good. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for being on the podcast. Yeah. Have you ever read David Spink's book, Business of Belonging?
I haven't, but that sounds amazing. I should go and read that.
It's a great book. All about community and belonging, how to have that be something that pays back and 100-fold. But thank you for being on the podcast. How do people reach out? I know that you said your name is the one that people know you about mostly, but yeah, how do they reach out to you?
You can find me on my website at speakmichelle.com. You can also find me on Instagram at speakmichelle, which is where I communicate with people best. But my phone number is on my website, so call or text me. I'm accessible.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in two ways. One, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.